I'm delighted to introduce to you, okay, Dean DeBolt, okay. He's an archivist, okay, with the University of West Florida, out of their History Center. And so he's here to talk about Kudzu, okay.
The jelly is very tasty.
It is.
I apologize again for being late. I told my wife this week, I said, you know, I love you so much. I'd follow you to hell and back. And she said, well, that's okay. You don't have to come back.
I gotta remember that one.
So speaking of hell, we're going to talk tonight about Kudzu, the plant that infected the South. Now we call it the plant that devoured the South, but most people say infected the South. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. Before I mention that, I'll mention a little bit about what I do. I'm at the University of West Florida in the library, and we have what's called the West Florida History Center, and we have about 1.4 million items out there. What we do is we collect materials in the Panhandle. We collect materials that tell something about our region. We collect personal papers of families, of individuals, of businesses, of organizations. We have maps, we have newspapers, we have photographs. Brian Rooker back there would get lost in the collections, and he has a couple of times. Had to send out search parties.
I want to
So we
stay
have a
lost.
lot of we have a lot of materials, and we collect materials, and it's a lot of fun. We're working right now on a large collection from Baptist Hospital. A lot of you know Baptist Hospital relocated, moved to a new location, and they transferred all of their old paper material to us, and that is brochures and newsletters and photographs and everything else you can name. Not patient case records. Okay, don't worry about that. Not yet. Anyway.
Not yet.
But in any case, we're always getting collection. We're always getting things to people to work on. We're open to the public. We take email. We take phone questions. I get cold case investigators from all over the country because we have runs of newspapers and Guthrie's paper, all the papers in the Panhandle. And our collections go back to about the early 15th century.
Wow.
We've had people give us rare books autographed by Albert Einstein, Helen Keller, Charles Lindbergh. We have a 4-page Thomas Jefferson letter. Thomas Jefferson wrote to a man in downtown Pensacola, a family back in the 1800s. We found it in the attic among the family papers in a house in North Hill. And so that's quite it's pretty neat. Every 4th of July, I get out and I kind of brush my fingers over it, But we have a lot. But today I'm going to share a little bit of botanical history and about plants and gardens that will leave you in awe. This is the story of Kudzu, the plant that ate the South. And we begin with a man named Carl Peter Thunberg. And he was from Uppsala, Sweden, and he got his medical doctorate in 1772. And his studies were in philosophy, theology, medicine, and chemistry. And his main interests were natural history and medicine. Now today you can't take all of those tracks, okay? You have to pick one of them when you come to university. What are you going to be? But in those days he was a fairly well-rounded scientist. And from 1770 until 1779 he traveled in Europe and in the Far East, and he looked and studied plants. And he often traded his work, his travel, by being a surgeon aboard ships. So he used his talent to travel. And after traveling for 9 years, he returned to Uppsala, Sweden, in 1779, and he spent the rest of his life at that university as a botany professor and later chair of botany and a botanical professor. He built up the university botanical garden, put up a greenhouse, put up lots of plants, a herbarium, a garden, and all that. But for our story, in 1771, this is a picture of the university at Uppsala. I'm probably saying it wrong, but in 1771, he made a trip to Japan. Now, 1771, the only people that could trade with Japan were the Dutch. And even then, the Dutch, before them were the Portuguese, and they could only trade with Japan on an artificial island off of Nagasaki called Tajima. It was an artificial island created for these traders. And once you reached the island, it would prevent and forbid outsiders from having contact with Japanese people, the way the emperor set it up. Every ship coming in was inspected. Its sails were held by the Japanese, so you couldn't just sail away. You had to have their permission and get your sails back, for example. And they confiscated religious books and weapons. Now, we don't really know how Thunberg was able to collect these plants. Perhaps some were brought to him. But in some cases, he might have created a disguise to leave the island. That was sometimes done by some of the Navy ship people. But occasionally, high-ranking Japanese would ask the Dutch, do you have a doctor or surgeon on your ship on board that could help us? And sometimes they would be allowed to leave the island and treat Japanese patients. So maybe there was some kind of exchange. We do know the Dutch introduced to the Japanese tomatoes, chocolate, and clover. And what did they give us? Kudzu. But anyway, but only 2 Dutch ships a year were allowed in here. That was why in our study of American history, we talk about Matthew Perry and President Millard Fillmore sending the U.S. forces to Japan and opening up Japan for trade in 1853. That's why we talk about that. Before it was just so limited. Anyway, back to Thunberg. One of the plants he discovered was called, he named it Praeria thunbergiana. And it also have several varieties known as Praeria montana, Praeria lobata, which refers to the size of the leaf, or simply kudzu. It's a pretty plant, isn't it a pretty plant?
Well.
It's one of the earliest medicinal plants used in Chinese medicine, and it was traditionally used to treat alcohol abuse. And this is a woodblock showing Chinese workers harvesting, or Japanese workers harvesting kudzu plant. In modern times, it's actually been turned into a powder that you can buy in some of the health food stores. And it's been used, again, for the treatment of alcohol abuse. We really don't know how or why it does. But some of the last studies were done in 2013. So we're still looking at it in some cases. And of course, it can relieve the effects of headaches, upset stomach, dizziness, heart-healthy lifestyle. Who knows? Kind of like Geritol when I was growing up. You know, Lawrence Welch showed you always had the ad for Geritol. Geritol would solve everything. And of course, it was like 70 proof, I think.
That's why they got to have this now for the alcoholism.
Everything. Well, anyway, in 1876, the United States held an exposition in Philadelphia, celebrating the 100 years of America, the Centennial Expedition. And it was a big fair. There were showcases of American inventions and accomplishments and other kinds of things. And there were a series of exhibits from other countries, and one of them being Japan. And he'd only been open to America for 23 years. Commodore Perry sailed in the harbor in 1853. So 23 years later, we have this. So now a lot of people know a lot about Japan. So having a booth at the Centennial Exposition was a big deal. And they had a little booth inside, and then this is what they had outside at the Centennial. And they showed off garden plants and other things, and one of the plants that they showed off was a plant called kudzu. And they said, this is a great little plant. It's a good ground cover, it could be foliage, has some medicinal properties, and so forth. And following that, there's some interest in this plant. And so this is an ad from the Marion, Alabama newspaper in 1876 talking about the Japanese exhibit with their kudzu fiber. They actually have a paper, the paper with kudzu fiber. So there's a lot of ads, things appearing in other newspapers. The Florida Agriculturalist in 1879 had a little article about the plant, about the kudzu plant, and it's luxuriant foliage. Oh, that's romantic. Luxuriant foliage across my yard. But our West Florida history begins with a man named C.E. Please, Mr. and Mrs. Please. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Earl Please were a Quaker couple, and they moved to West Florida soon after their marriage in Indiana. And they settled in the town called Chipley and began farming. And Mr. Please was an amateur photographer. He liked to take pictures. And so we have a bunch of his glass-plate pictures. This is one of entitled Woman Feeding the Chickens. And it might be Mrs. Please, we're not real sure. But he would take pictures with his camera in the 1890s. And he would take pictures of nature. And we have photographs of grasshoppers and plants and all that. I mean, today these are really art things. We think of these as art prints, but this was something he was using the camera for. He took a lot of natural photographs. And one of the most interesting is this one, which I call Family in a Tree. We don't know which family. We don't know who these people are, but they're captured by the tree. So he took a lot of interesting photographs and all that. And there was even a note in the Chipley Banner noting that he took pictures. About 1902, Please heard about the kudzu seeds, and he ordered some from Japan. And he planted them, but they didn't do well the first year. They did a little better the second year, but he decided to throw out the vine. He was not pleased with it, and he said for a few feet of growth the first year, second year of growth, and after the lawnmower and back over it, the large dead leaves looked so bad, we decided to get rid of it. And his wife convinced him to throw it around the compost heap of his yard. And she said maybe it'll grow and cover the compost heap, make things look a little bit better. You guys know what a compost heap is, don't you?
Got one in
My grandparents had a farm, and compost heap where you threw all the leftovers and all that. Eventually, they decayed, made a really good, nutritious. And we plowed them back into the. He had 8 acres. One full acre was a garden. I got to pick the strawberries in the 1 acre in the summertime in June. I begged him to build things and put the strawberries at this height. But he wouldn't do it. I had to get down on my hands and knees and pray there were no snakes among the strawberries. Anyway, that's another story. But anyway, well, Mr. Please planted this and it grew around the compost pile. And he went out one day, and it overgrew the pile. Began to spread to the horse shed, and he found his horses munching on it. Well, by fall of 1905, he noted the vine had covered 50 feet by 80 feet of space between his garden barn and the drive in the neighbor's house. And he decided to send a stamp to Tallahassee to the State Department of Agriculture. And they called this, and this is an example. It says, took a picture in 1907, and it showed the kudzu covering the 12-foot pole. It's June 1st, and it said it made it 30 days from the base to the top of the 12-foot pole. So, you know, this is luxuriant growth. We sent it to the agriculture department, and they came back and they said, this is really good. They called it hay, kudzu hay, Japanese kudzu vine. They said, this is really good. Look at the amount of protein and fat, sugar and starches and fiber and fat. Why, it's even better than cow peas and all that. This is really good. And so he was really pleased. And they could be used for cattle and horses, and they praised it. Now, Pete's not the only one interested in kudzu. It also appears in some other places. So the Country Home magazine in 1903 is the rise with the idea of having formal gardens with your home. People built these big, giant houses in places like Marianne and other places, and he wanted to have a luxuriant garden. And so the Country Home published one about this, and they show this guy planted kudzu in the middle of May, and by September, it covered the entire house in luxuriant growth. Then there's a Wisconsin home. Now, we have to know something. It sounds really good, but Wisconsin summers are different than Florida summers. There are also descriptions from that book. And they say, it bounds upward and onward over all obstacles, arriving at the window ledge, reaching the awning, and still not content until the roof be scaled, and it can see what is beyond. Like a little cat, see what is beyond. Oh, romantic, luxurious foliage. Must have been kudzu, which the fairy planted at the house of sleeping beauty, and it grew and all this. So I mean, just quite romantic, quite a lot of romantic description. But if we know anything about kudzu, this is Minneapolis, and they had a Minneapolis kudzu line, 1908. If we know anything about kudzu, we know states like Minnesota and Illinois, they're not covered with kudzu today. They have winter.
Right.
Florida does not have winter, except last January. Florida doesn't have winter. And it may be, Cleve did not realize, Cleve may not. Whoops, I did something wrong here. I got it. Cleve might not have known that it disappears, the frost kills it and it dies. He may not have known that. But he began to get really excited about the plant. And so he actually published an article in something called the Florida East Coast Home Seeker, all about this wonderful plant. A wonderful vine, and because of this, he got hundreds of letters from people saying, hey, can I have a cutting of it? Can I have a little sample? And he thought, great. And so he set up a nursery.
Oh, no.
In Cleve, Florida. This one of his glass plates, this is his nursery. And he's growing it. He's growing it on stock, and he's sending pieces of it all over the country to anybody that wants it. How nice. He published this little pamphlet in 1909. He called it the greatest forage plant ever known. You know, it'll cover up those sandy areas, and it will just be beautiful and everything. And better than cowpea, velvet bean, and red clover hay. I mean, he just really pushed it. I found a letter to him, to Mrs. Blunt. Mrs. Blunt, William Blunt was an attorney in Pensacola, and he was licensed to practice before the Florida Supreme Court and the United States Supreme Court. He was well known. He ran for Florida U.S. Senator one time. Anyway, he built a big house near the Pensacola Country Club called Sea Marsh, very fancy place, and he wanted to really make it look good, and so he ordered kudzu. He ordered kudzu from Mr. Please to plant around to make his place really nice. And 1915, here's another ad for the wonderful kudzu plant. And by 1934, the U.S. Soil Service published this booklet called Kudzu for Erosion Control in the Southeast. Erosion control. Now, our luxurious growth is now a erosion control. There we go. A good example of erosion control. Luxuriant growth. And we all know the rest of the story. It has gone wild. I mean, it has just overgrown the South.
Wow.
We now know it covers a good part of these areas. You can't miss it. You all see it. You all see it when you drive Alabama. Places just awful. And please, couldn't keep up with all the orders. 1930s expression, he almost got ruined. But today, it's out of control. It's invading the South. It's considered a nuisance, a weed, something people called it the Kudzu vine. Kudzu vine. There's an old story that if you planted it, you have to run to the house and it might beat you to the house. They also call it a mile a minute vine. And please, his tombstone in Chipley, Florida, it says, has a little tombstone and it says Kudzu Pioneers on the tombstone. And they even have a marker about Kudzu being developed here because he emphasized it and pushed it forward. And we make jokes about this all the time today. I found these two little books. One was called The Book of Kudzu, a culinary and healing guide, 70 recipes. That's not enough. But and then this one, it was done by a cartoonist. He had one called Gone with the Kudzu. Now I can go into northern states like Illinois. I'm from Illinois originally. I can go back home and talk about kudzu. They don't have the slightest idea what I'm talking about. But we do. And that's the story of kudzu, the plant that devoured the South. And it came from us. It came from here in North Florida with Mr. Plea promoting it all over the United States and selling cuttings out of his wonderful nursery of kudzu.
Isn't it?
Thank you. Go out and try to cut it down. Try to clear it out of an area, and then you become the Kudzu vine. Okay.
I know when I was saying, people look at that clouds, you know, and I don't see that much in clouds usually, but some people, it's every other cloud is. But when I'm driving, I'm like, oh, it's like a dinosaur. That looks like an elephant. It's like it's kind of interesting, but
The sad thing about it, it kills those trees. I mean, it covers them. It covers them. The sunlight cannot reach the leaves.
it does kill the trees.
It kills the trees. It soaks up all the water around, so it kills any plants around. So I mean, it is a destructive nuisance. It will wipe out the entire, everything. I'm sure there are some animals that love it as ground cover and snakes and everything else, but it will wipe out all the plants and everything else in an area.
Is anybody doing anything to stop it? Or?
Well, some of the pesticides that stop it are the kind we shouldn't be spraying anyway. That's the problem. And it doesn't get cold enough that it dies here in the South.
Right.
It looks like it's dead, but it's fooling you. Okay.
Is it related to greenbrier? Is it in any way related to greenbrier? That gets all up and kills everything too? The greenbrier. You know, the greenbrier, stickly, that stuff that's all over the place.
That vine
With the sticklies.
Oh, yeah.
I hate that
I don't know
stuff.
what that vine is called. Mother knew the name of that vine. But there's a vine that we have in our yard.
Yes.
Is this a big problem in Japan also, or do they have winter and controls it, or do they have some techniques, or why?
That's a good question. I think if you look at, my gut feeling, and I don't really know, but my gut feeling, Japanese are very careful about their guts. They take care of them. They trim them. They control them. They got some other uses for their plants, so they can actually use the fiber to make paper. They can grind it, make it that powder, medicinal powder, and that kind of thing. I don't know, but my suspicion is in Japan it's very controlled. It would be very controlled.
And they have a winter.
Yeah, and they would have a winter too, something that would, at least freeze it, stop it from growing. I mean, we get freezing, but what, 3 or 4 days or something like that? And that plant will trick you. Okay, it'll pretend it's freezing, but it ain't. Okay, it's ready to come back.
I grew up outside Birmingham, Alabama, and there's just miles of it. It's okay.
Just miles.
Yeah. When you travel, you
And you up to the Alabama, when you take these roads up to the Alabama, like, you just see mounds and mounds and mounds of it. Yeah.
So it was never used like livestock feed or something? Couldn't, some of the advertisements for like use it to,
Livestock and all
live
that.
feed your cows, horses and stuff like that, that never panned out? I mean, must have been
Yeah,
some
but it's
idea.
but farmers won't use it for livestock, okay? I mean, they're busy buying grain, bags of feed, dumping them in the trough, that's faster, that's easier feeding. Think of it like a herd of goats. You got a herd of goats, you bring them in, they nibble all the grass in the yard. What are you gonna feed them tomorrow? If the yard's gonna grow up that fast, it isn't. Kudzu is a pretty fast plant, but that's not gonna do it either, so it's not a continuous, food source for farmers. So, certainly it's beneficial, but it's just not, and I have yet to see the Florida Department or Alabama Road Department gather up a group of cows and say, we're going over here and munch this kudzu today.
Right.
You out of the south.
Yes.
Has anybody found use for it? 'Cause I thought I heard somewhere about people weaving baskets and making things out of it.
I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
it just keeps growing and getting in the way.
Is it edible for humans? Can humans eat it? I'm sorry, I cut through. Can people eat it?
Pardon?
Can people consume it?
Can people eat it?
Well, besides the
I
ground?
don't know. Would you like to try
No,
it?
no.
Boil it, maybe,
That's what
make
I'm
it soft.
wondering.
Well,
There's
they
gotta be
make the
some use for it. Go, Brian.
You can open up a tiny restaurant here in Gulf Breeze and offer them chopped kudzu in the salad.
Don't know.
Every time I get from these salads and I say, Judy, I think they picked these up out of the corner of our yard, Yeah.
What about biofuel?
Yeah, that would be.
Here's an idea.
Or would it take over the refinery and just choke it?
We'll take it to the southern border and see if it'll grow over the wall.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you,
Jane.
you made it so entertaining.
Thank you.
And these are some ginger crinkle cookies.
Oh, wow.
No kudzu. So we appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we thank you all for coming tonight. That was very enjoyable, and now you'll be looking for it, but anyway. But thank you so much, Dean, and we wanted to get you involved with our archives at some point, so we'll talk about that too. All right, thank you.